Right, where are we? Chairman's script, 8th of March 2023. Good afternoon and welcome to the Sidmouth and East Beach BMP Advisory Group virtual meeting on the 8th of March 2023. I'm your chair, Councillor Jeff Young. I would also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are unable to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. We will now start the meeting by running through the introductions of this advisory group members present. When you hear your name called, please confirm your name and who you are representing. Over to you, Debbie.
All right, Chair. Well, shall we start with you, Councillor Young?
Yeah, I'm Councillor Jeff Young. I'm portfolio holder for Coast, Country and Environment at East Devon District Council.
Great, thank you. Let's move to Councillor Denise Bickley, please.
Hello, Councillor Denise Bickley, ward member for Sidmouth Town, including the beach.
Thank you. Welcome, Denise. Councillor John Loudon next, please.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes, John Loudon, Sidmouth Rural Ward, where the East Beach Cliffs are the far end of my ward. So I have a vested interest in all of this.
Thanks, John. Moving on to Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
I'm the ward member for Sidmouth Sidford, which fortunately has no beachfront yet.
Thank you, Marianne. Let's move on to Ian Barlow, please, next.
Ian Barlow, I'm a town councillor in Sidmouth.
Thanks, Ian. And Becky Elliott next, please.
So Becky Elliott, I'm a resident of Cliff Road and I am second to Paul Grew on the Cliff Road Action Group. Paul sends his apologies. He is currently away, so I'm standing in his place.
Thanks very much. Move on to Phil next, please. Phil Shepherd.
Phil Shepherd, I'm the operations manager at Sidmouth Lifeboat.
Thanks very much, Phil. Let's move on to Sam Scriven next, please.
Hello, mine's Sam Scriven. I'm the head of Heritage and Conservation with Jurassic Coast Trust.
Thanks, Sam. Let's move on to Richard Ely next, please. Hello, Richard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Ely and I'm representing Sidmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Next on to Mary Walden-Till, please.
Hello, I'm Mary and I'm representing Vision Group for Sidmouth.
Thank you very much. Next to Colin Boynton, please. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you. Colin Boynton, representing the Sid Vale Association and replacing Ed Harrison.
Thank you, Colin. Lovely to have you with us. Oliver next, please. Oliver Salter. I can see you, but I can't hear you, Oliver. We'll come back. Well, I know you're there anyway. That's the main thing. Let's move on to Dave Rafferty. I can see.
Hello, I'm Dave Rafferty. I'm a resident in Sidmouth. Thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you today. And I'm here to talk about the ramp project.
Great, thank you. I'll move on to Robin. Robin Goodman, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Robin Goodman. I'm here representing the Surf Lifesaving Club and surfers generally in Sidmouth.
Great, thank you, Robin. Let's move on to Thomas, please. Thomas Aldridge.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, Devon County Council Flood Risk Management Team.
Hi, Thomas. Good to see you. Martin Davis, I think you're on the call.
Yep. Hi, Martin Davis. I'm Environment Agency Coastal Advisor for the Devon Patch.
Great, thank you. And officer-wise, let's go with John Golding.
Hi all, John Golding. I'm the Director of Housing, Health and Environment at East Devon District Council.
Thanks, John. And let's, last but not least in any way, Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Buxton-Smith. I'm the Engineering Projects Manager at East Devon District Council.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Chair, I think that's covered everyone. I don't think I've missed anyone unless they want to speak now or forever hold their peace. No, I think we're good. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Item 2, notes from the previous meeting held on the 30th of June 2022. If anyone wishes to raise an issue with the minutes from the previous meeting, can you please raise your electronic hand now? Does everyone know how to raise their electronic hands? Hopefully you do. And no one is raising their electronic hand.
No, okay, we'll assume that's agreed then, Chair. Thanks.
Right, item 3, outline business case. Hand over to Tom Buxton-Smith. Tom, you're going to be presenting it on a PowerPoint, aren't you? So if we can have any questions at the before we go on to each slide each slide, so we can cover the questions on that subject and then move on if that's okay. And if anyone wants to raise a question, then if you can put up your yellow hand. Thank you.
Cool. Firstly, can I just confirm people can see the slides before I move on?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I've got the right screen showing. So starting on item 3, which potentially is the bulk of the meeting, which is why our main reason for here today is the outline business case. So I've tried to condense this into as few slides as possible. Those who have read the outline business case, it's 100 pages, so it's quite a lot to go through, and I don't think it's worthwhile us going through each page or certain bits. So I was going to overview over it, and obviously take questions on the bits I've covered, but also pick up any other things that people have identified or questions. We are in a position to make small changes, but largely the document is as it needs to be, and will hopefully go to the Environment Agency approval, but appreciate there might be slight discrepancies or things that people may have pointed out, but I don't, and we can't afford the time to keep reviewing it in this meeting and onwards. So so yeah, going forward, first of all, I just wanted to apologise for a delay in the production of the OBC. Originally, we had hoped this would have been done prior to Christmas, but we've had quite a few unfortunate delays. Essentially, a 100-page document requires a lot of work to go into it, and after drafting it, it needed further work. We're treading quite a tight rope, as you will, of getting the wording right in the document. Normally, this document isn't public for an Environment Agency project, but this is a public document, so we need to make sure that well, it will become a public document. It still has to be technical because it's aimed at the Environment Agency, but it's getting the wording right to ensure that we'll get funding and with the project we're after, rather than it defaulting by accident to another project if they find holes in the argument. So we've been working hard to get the argument right, explaining, for example, that a metre high raising of a splash wall in day 1 will be unacceptable and therefore not get planning permission, and that is not an option, because someone that doesn't live in Sidmouth reviewing this may see it in a different light. We've also unfortunately had some change in the lead project manager has left, well, actually gone on a year's secondment, so we've having to get new members of staff up to speed to help with the production of the ABC. I'm going to move on to the next slide. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions on the delays, but correct me if I'm wrong. No, I'll move on in that case. So the outline business case is essentially what has been discussed at the previous advisory group meeting and at cabinet since then, and it's the hybrid option. Within the OBC, just to avoid getting confused, it's now known as option 6. Again, this is where the difficulties come about the wording. We have had to present a fixed option in the OBC to the Environment Agency. This is because they can't approve a woolly option. It needs to be fixed, but also for pricing to say that, it will cost this much and deliver these benefits. What we can do is reiterate that this is subject to change, and we know there's going to be extensive detailed design and modelling and consultation, which will likely change the design from what has been proposed. I really hope in a more positive light going forward. And again, highlighting that the huge risk of planning of trying to deliver something that the general population of Sidmouth don't want. For example, the metre-high splash wall. That's what we've had to change the argument, because there is, looking at how you assess the projects, it is a risk that the Environment Agency's reviewers may default to a 1 metre high splash wall. So we've had to be really careful and really concise in our argument to say that this is simply not an option. Any questions on this slide?
No hands up so far, Tom.
Okay, it's either good or bad.
Off lightly.
Yes. So another complication that we've had to include within the outline business case, and I want to be upfront with you, not trying to mislead everyone in this group, is that I appreciate the splash wall is probably the most contentious element of the design as it currently stands. So we've had to include the pricing for a metre high splash wall along the whole of the esplanade. This is broken down to say that actually that's quite conservative, because in reality we're only going to hopefully raise the wall at the eastern end of the esplanade days 1, but rebuild the foundations along the rest of the esplanade ready for a future top-up. So we've allowed enough money within the project to allow for this. Again, we've mentioned in the OBC that this is quite a critical, but everything's based on the modelling, and we don't have the modelling yet. So this is where does the metre high wall start and where does it finish? We don't really know. We've had to put a drawing together to show where we think it could be, but that's based on no modelling. So again, at the next stage with future modelling, this will be much, and consultation, this will be much more taken out. And it's also, just to clarify, the outline design is not fixed. It's not committing us to build what is in the outline business case. In the outline design, the planning stage is where it's definitive, and that is what is built, and that's following public consultation. So it's just to try and reassure people that when what is in the OBC may not be the final the thing that's built, and is subject to so much more modelling and detailed design that it is very likely to change. A few hands have gone up, so
Yep, so Councillor Eleanor Rylance first. Welcome, Eleanor.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have an invite to the meeting. So I was in Sidmouth quite recently, and walking along the esplanade, there are piles and piles of really quite large pebbles, which have clearly been left there by the sea. And this is at a place where it's probably 15 feet down to the beach. And I'm just a little concerned that we might just not build a splash wall because people in Sidmouth don't see the point of it, when clearly the force of the sea is such that it's actually throwing these pebbles, some of them probably a kilo in weight, up onto the esplanade already. And it's only a matter of time before somebody's struck by one of these, whilst out trying to take pictures of pretty waves. And should we really be caving in to public opinion on this when we know that seas are rising and this is going to get more and more frequent? I'd hope that we'd be trying to do our best for Sidmouth rather than being led by them, because if we wait until somebody gets badly hurt by a 1 kilo rock landing on them, then we're the ones who need to get in the neck. I'm afraid I feel a little bit desolate really about this, and about the notion that people are still denying that seas are rising and that we are facing a problem, because I really think we are, and we need to deal with it ahead of time, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's really good, and actually, I can add some more depth to that, which hopefully will help with putting your mind at ease. One of the reasons for going for an offshore approach is to reduce future ongoing maintenance, as in recharging the beach, which would have to happen more often if there wasn't additional breakwater. That is the first line of defense against the sea. So us doing that now will reduce the storminess sort of within the area behind the breakwater, and therefore less likely for pebbles to be and water to be jumping over the splash wall, etc. So away from that, at the east end, where we haven't currently got a breakwater proposed, is yes, the wall will have to come up, and that risk will be removed. Well, the risk will be reduced by a splash wall going up. As part of the proposal is we are planning to upgrade the whole splash wall foundation, so that when sea level has become more fully realised, rather than small raise at the moment, when it's a larger raise in the future, we can easily raise the wall without having to dig up the whole esplanade again. So hopefully we are adapting to climate change as we go along, but we're not immediately because of the risk to planning, we're not insisting on a metre high splash wall on day one. Has that helped answer the question?
I get that. I'm just concerned, I suppose, that we're going to end up being overtaken by events rather than ahead of them. And I would rather hope we were ahead of them, but it is what it is, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next with the hand up is Becky Elliott, please.
Thanks, Debbie. So Eleanor, I echo your thoughts around speed, and that's one of our concerns as a sort of obviously up on Cliff Road. We want to make sure that, having had quite a protracted period of discussion, that we're actually now able to move forward and get funding so that action can be taken sooner rather than later. Tom, my question actually was just a little bit more around the procedural aspect. I take it it's quite commonplace to go to the Environment Agency with an outline, hence outline business case. It seems a very standard term. And that won't be seen in any way as detrimental. It's an ordinary course of process. And apologies if you've covered this on previous calls.
No, thank you. That's a very good question, and I'm sure there's other people on the call with a similar question. Yes, it is the procedure. So we're classed as an RMA, a risk management authority, and we have to submit an outline business case to the Environment Agency, which, as you mentioned, is outline. If it changes significantly, we may need to do a technical review going forward. But generally, once the outline business case is submitted, that allows the Environment Agency to release funding to us, so we can start developing the detailed design.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
So next up is Chris Lockyer. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the meeting. Are you with us, Chris?
He's showing a mute symbol on his.
No.
Oh, he's there.
I found it. Sorry. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but I'm here now. Yes, I just wanted to pick up Eleanor's point, and I suppose I've also seen what she's seen, which is lots of pebbles, and sometimes they're quite large on the esplanade. But of course, they're on the esplanade, which actually means that the splash wall, however high it was, wouldn't actually have stopped them getting onto the esplanade. And I think what Tom is suggesting, which I think is the right approach, is we need to be tackling it out at sea, if we can, with a combination of the breakwater and an enhanced beach, which actually makes it less likely that we're going to have those large pebbles landing on the esplanade. Because the reality is, if the only alternative, if you're concerned about those pebbles and you're not doing it offshore, is you really need to have a splash wall or a wall actually next to the sea, between the sea and promenade, which is not what people want. So I think that the approach that Tom is proposing, which actually is focusing on the primary defence being offshore, is absolutely the right one, and it's more sustainable, I think.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Mary Warden Till is next on the list. Thank you.
Again, I want to say something about what Eleanor raised, because, and it's also shown in some of the diagrams that Tom's got in the OBC, that if we have the beach up to the designed level, that actually stops the pebbles going up and over. I think Eleanor may not understand that the greater depth to the beach increases the likelihood of pebbles being thrown up. So it's not that we have a 15-foot wall there already and it's not stopping pebbles. It's that we need the beach there to absorb the strength of the waves in order to stop things getting chucked about so much. Or I could be wrong, but Tom will doubtless tell me.
Tom, do you want to take that?
Well, yes, having a bigger beach means less energy being transferred to the waves coming up and over. So yes, having a bigger beach and with a breakwater should reduce the amount of pebbles coming onto the esplanade. Yeah.
Okay, next up is Richard Ely.
Yes, hello. Just to reiterate what other people have said, but also to assure Eleanor that I've been involved in this for 20 years and I don't recall a single Sidmouth representative ever suggesting that we were not expecting sea level rise. So it just hasn't come up. Many thanks.
Okay, now I think we've got Tony Birch. Is that you, Tony?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. Welcome to the meeting, Tony.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I'm not computer literate. I'm losing it, I think. Couldn't get on board. Sorry, but I'm here now. So yeah. Okay, but I can't see my Fizzog on the screen. Am I doing something wrong?
No, don't worry, Tony. The main thing is we can hear you. Did you have a question?
No, didn't. I just wanted to make sure that I'm in the meeting.
Okay, lovely. I'll lower your hand then. But yes, we can hear you. That's the main thing. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Tony. We haven't got any more questions. So do you want to move on then, Tom?
Yep, I'll move on to the plan. So this is essentially the latest drawing showing the outline design, and I'm obviously keen to make sure it's not for construction. I'm also want to obviously show that there is some work at East Beach which we've which we haven't really focused on so far. So this is obviously the East Beach, and the slowing down of erosion of the cliffs is an important element. And as per all conversations to date, our outline design is still the 120-meter groin, or super groin as it's often known, for beach recharge. Obviously, further to that, the new design has an offshore breakwater. This has just been placed here based on some hand calculations. It says very clearly in the outline business case that this is subject to be moved and possibly split into two, or all sorts. But until we have got a detailed physical model, that is the right time to start experimenting with actually where it goes to get the best protection for Sidmouth and maintain a big beach. So I didn't want to get too hung up on this drawing because it is an outline design, but it will be publicly available soon. So I didn't want it to be a surprise when it does arrive. I think the overhead picture, which is in the OBC, shows it a bit more better with what's going on. I'll skip to the next slide. It's related before I take any questions, and this is just a cross profile, again showing how much the beach is due to come up. This is towards the Ham, where it does show a splash wall being raised, and obviously you've got the river training wall in the background, I believe. So I should double check that. I think it's section A, which is, well, it's actually marked there, so you can see in the background. So obviously clearly a lot of beach to come up. That's a good with the car for a scale. It shows how much beach loss there has been and how much beach we're trying to bring in. is there any questions on these last two slides?
No hands up at the moment,
Yeah,
Tom.
my hand's up.
Oh. Who's got a hand up?
Me, Phil.
Ah, Phil, hello.
Hi. So I've previously highlighted the risks associated with shore parallel breakwaters in terms of rip currents. So I just want some assurance that the engineering consultants are going to look at that kind of thing as well as purely the sea defence aspect of them.
Well, yes, they will, and that brings me on to a later item within the agenda that when I'll be looking for assistance in forming the scope for the detailed design stage. So it's important that we're not missing things like this. So it has been loosely considered, but without being able to test it initially a physical model and then a detailed model, it hasn't been fully tested to see if it is going to be an issue or not. But yeah, very keen that things like this are put into the scope to make sure you're right. We don't end up with a dangerous structure that's going to put people off visiting Sidmouth. Okay.
No other questions? Oh, Chris, you've got a question.
Yes, it was really the detail of that, Tom, and we have exchanged an email on already, but just wanted some clarification. The western end of the splash wall, it's suggesting that that's being raised. I'm just slightly concerned that and I know you've all the caveats you've been saying about detailed design coming later, but I'm just thinking there might be a bit of a red rag to a bull if that went out as a published document.
Yeah, I've queried it already with the consultant, and unfortunately, because of a change of staff, they're not entirely sure why that has been included. I seem to remember back from the when we were looking at the former preferred design, which featured no offshore breakwater, that the Bedford Steps and West didn't need actually have to have a wall raising because it's well protected by the existing beach. So I'm slightly surprised to see it's proposing wall raising in that. I mean, for the funding and everything at the outline stage, it doesn't really matter. But I fully take on board this image. People will say, well, why is that being raised there? And not elsewhere? And it does, yeah, it does ask more questions than it answers.
I think, unfortunately, it invites a negative reaction, which is my concern.
Yeah. Thank you. And I see Tony Birch.
Tony Birch.
He's on mute.
You're muted, Tony.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Tom. Okay. Yes, Tom. Thanks for the reassurance that the shore parallel breakwater is going to be reviewed at the detailed design stage with physical modelling, because we've spoken about this a lot. In as much that the existing two breakwaters, which are oblique, work very, very well, and clearly we've been discussing one option maybe to have another oblique breakwater. Learning from what we've had before. I just wanted to make sure that there's enough money in the budget to do enough permutation or physical modelling to look at the effectiveness of reorientating the breakwater and maybe dividing into two.
Yes, I believe that's the case. And again, when we get to the future agenda item, it is volunteers to help develop the scope to make sure we're picking up all these bits and pieces and not missing them, and doing the work and then having to go back and revisit it. So we just want to get all the questions we need answers into one place to make sure that it can go into a decent comprehensive scope and get modelled correctly. But yes, there is sufficient money in the budget to do a physical model, which you can do sort of large changes quite quickly on a single run to see what they'd look like before you start really going into the detail to perfect the structure. So yeah.
And may I just check, is that physical modelling in a wave basin similar to the one that was done by Hydraulics Research for the original scheme?
Well, we haven't written the scope yet, so again,
I'm just wondering about the budget they've allowed for.
There is quite a large budget, so and it's important. Everyone I spoke to said you need to include a large budget for physical modelling. So that will
Yeah,
be something that details we'll pick up. Yeah, hopefully in a possibly a subgroup when we're going through the scope. But I'll get into that later.
yeah. No, I'm just happy that there's a big budget for it. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. I think we're all out of hands unless I'm missing any.
No more questions that I can
Okay.
see for the minute,
So
Tom.
I'll just skip back to the final slide. I think on the outline business case. So I guess at this point we're looking up for advice or a recommendation to proceed from the advisory group. The document is a near final draft. We have noticed still a few errors here and there, so there will be small minor revisions and checking. The project board have the authority from Cabinet to approve the outline business case and submission. So when it is ready and complete and within reason as error-free as possible, I mean, it is a 100-page document with appendices, so it is quite a behemoth of a document. We'll look to the project board will meet and hopefully approve for submission. It could be a month or so or a few months to turn around from the Environment Agency. Being quite a big document, it's likely to have a few queries. So obviously the sooner we can get it to them, the sooner that they can look at it before it comes back, hopefully with assurance. Obviously, once the outline business case is approved, because I should also mention that through the review process, they might want further changes to the outline business case. So if they do, and once they have been updated, once the outline business case is approved, we'll be publishing it all on the East Devon website, obviously for everyone to look at. So I think, yeah, any questions on that?
I've got one. Hello, sorry. Oh,
yeah, we've got you, Tony. Did you?
Just one suggestion, Tom, in the recommendation of the outline business case, following on from what we just discussed about the fact there may be more than one breakwater. The outline business case recommendation is for one additional breakwater. And I'm just suggesting, so that, but although later on in the document it does say that the intention is to look at more, I just think it would be really prudent to have in the recommendation that the recommendation is for one or more offshore breakwaters. So it's abundantly clear to the agency from the beginning that is the intention.
Yes, I take that on board, and we did have a big discussion about this. And then it does, if we start putting or more in the kind of design, you know, the option, then it does make it a bit more woolly. And that hence why it does say later in the document that we will consider more should it be a benefit. So I do take it on board, and it's perhaps something we could change, but it's just getting that balance right between having a definitive option that they can approve subject to future changes versus a bit of a, because ultimately we haven't done hand calculations on 2 breakwaters, whereas we have for 1 breakwater. So it's just to avoid that question when we get to review.
Well, I think the problem I see is head office personnel because if it is a definitive option, then it's not flexible, and that's exactly my point. I think the recommendation needs to indicate that it is a flexible option.
Mm. Yeah, I believe it does. The outline business case does say it's a flexible option, and hence why we'll be looking at other. Well,
I meant in the recommendation that it's a flexible recommendation. Perhaps I should.
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Next person up is Councillor Marion Rixon.
Just a few queries. Is it just me, or did anyone else find quite a lot of the acronyms very confusing? I think I would have appreciated a glossary of acronyms if that was possible. My main query is regarding pages 20 to 24, where there's a comment saying the fluvial wall is expected to fail within the next 15 to 30 years. And on two pages later, it says the river wall is owned by the landowner. And I'm sincerely hoping you're going to say this is owned by the Environment Agency, not the Town Council.
Do you want to take that one, Tom?
Okay, well, I can take the first things, a glossary. Obviously, this document is not a public document. It's aimed for reviewers. We can look at putting in a glossary for when we publish it to make it easier for public to understand. Yet regarding the river wall, it is my understanding that the river wall is owned by the town council, with the Environment Agency owning the setback wall behind. The wall itself is, if Pennington Point is allowed to retreat further than it already has, that wall becomes more exposed. So therefore it will fail sooner because it's never been designed as a seawall, it's a river wall. I mean, that's almost a different story in terms of its residual life, and I imagine in the future there will be another bid by someone to repair that wall, because it does, although the river wall is lower than the flood defence wall set back, the flood defence wall is reliant on the river wall. So if that is not in good condition, then eventually the flood wall would be at risk. So Sidmouth would be at more risk from the fluvial flooding. So yes, I can see it. Yeah, it is a concern, but it'll be made worse if we don't do anything on the seafront.
Okay, thank you. Also on page 24, it talks about demountable defences. Are these the ones that we sort of looked at various designs before? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, so this is a bit that's kind of been forgotten about in the OBC outline design, because because there's obviously much bigger issues going on. But currently it's proposed from the end of the existing splash wall at the Ham to essentially the Southwest Water Pumping Station for temporary defences to be built. We believe there's a much better option. We just didn't. It wasn't the right time to get it. Delay the project further by doing it at this stage. But yes, it would be those temporary defences we've seen. So metal posts, and they would go in. But clearly there are operational issues with the fisherman's area, but also with an improved slipway of lifeboat launching. So we believe there's a better solution at the Ham because there's more space to do so. This is essentially setting back a brand new splash wall to the landward side of the highway, or townward side. So a much smaller wall where the pavement steps up, and probably a floodgate to close the turning circle in a storm, and that would obviously allow much more. It wouldn't impede an operation of that area when it's not a flood event. But that's something that we picked up in the detailed design and consultation, because it's another element, but it's providing the same function, I should say. That's why it hasn't really been touched, because ultimately we're trying to stop water getting over a splash wall into town at that point. And how we do it, the Environment Agency don't really mind, as long as it's a wall, which we've proposed. It's just where it sits doesn't really matter.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Councillor John Loudon.
Thank you, Debbie. Tom, as ever, thank you for what you're presenting, and I know you're only part way through, but what you presented thus far has been focusing quite rightly on us as a district council, and making sure we get ourselves in the right place for the Environment Agency to put the thumbs up and to progress it. So therefore, I'm just wondering, we've got Martin from the EA here. Is this an opportune moment to ask him to say, look, to ask him the question, are you comfortable with the direction of travel and how we're going about this? And taking Becky's point about timeliness, because particularly for her and her neighbours, time isn't on their side. Are we potentially looking at this being something that can be pushed ahead in the timely way, in the timetable that we've been talking about in the documentation? I hope I haven't thrown a hand grenade in for you, Tom.
Does Martin want to take that one now?
Yeah, certainly. Myself and others have been working closely with Tom and others on this one for quite a while now. So the direction of travel is sort of inbuilt, if you like. So yes, happy with the direction of travel, happy with the changes en route, following guidance changes. So it has been a more complicated one than typical, I would say. But Tom and others are doing a great job sort of navigating. As Tom says, there's a difference between the purpose of this document, which is to release government funding and get technical assurance, or prior to that, technical assurance and financial approval, just to show that it's good value for money, it'll do what it says it'll do, and it meets all the normal due diligence checks to release government funds. So yes, on track. It is quite a wordy and complex story to this one. So I guess imagine you're somebody looking at this for the first time. There's a story to tell about why options are chosen. So I think there's probably a bit more to do, I would say, in some of the wording, the cross-referencing of tables, numbers, etc., because that's worth doing now before it gets submitted. Otherwise, you'll just add more time later. So it'll still have to go through another iteration, I would say, before it is submitted for assurance, which is almost like a value for money technical check and then financial approval. So I imagine it's a couple of months away yet, but yeah, certainly narrowing down on that timescale.
Thank you, Martin, for that. As I see it, we just need to do a bit of tweaking with the wording, but the end result is going to be the same, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Chris Lockyer, do you want to come in?
Yes, just really following on from Tony's question about flexibility, really, and coming back to the splash wall. What it says is that the middle section, the splash wall, be replaced with a new wall of the same height. And I'm just wondering, is there the possibility of raising it by, say, 10 centimeters? Because if given the fact you are going to replace the foundations and the wall, it would sort of make sense to raise it a bit, because it would defer the point at which you would have to raise it further. And actually, I think 10 centimetre increase would actually be quite acceptable to the people of Sidmouth, and therefore wouldn't cause too much of an issue. So I think it might be a good idea to have some flexibility in exactly what the replacement is, or does this tie our hands, really? That's the question. Is there a possibility of tweaking this height at some point in the future?
Tom?
I think absolutely yes. In the detailed design stage and public consultation, that seems a very sensible idea. I've had more than one people say it's too low to sit on anyway, so it should be a bit higher anyway. But again, just not wanting to get to delay this process and complicate things by putting it in there at the moment. But it's the Environment Agency wouldn't, because obviously the higher the wall, the more protection it offers. It's something that, if we built a higher wall than we said we would, I'm sure wouldn't be an issue. If it was the other way around, without any modelling or proof that we can do, then that's a different story. But yeah, I believe there's more than enough flexibility to include small raising along the wall when we rebuild it, should general public consultation say it's acceptable.
Thanks.
No other questions? Do you want to continue, Tom?
Well, that's actually the end of that section. I mean, I guess, again, for those that missed it at the start, it was obviously a 100-page document. I haven't got the time, and I don't think you've got the time for me to read every page and go through it. So I'm hoping that most people at least skim read it or understood it. So we're looking for now for the advisory group to advise us and the project board on whether or not the OBC should be submitted. So I've just noticed Tony's put his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. I'm mixed up where we are on the agenda, and I didn't realise I should be raising this point now because I was a bit late coming. On the project risks in the OBC, we know we've had quite a struggle with Natural England getting them to actually nail their colours to a mast on this one, and there are still lots of hurdles we've got to jump through or over that they've placed in our way. And I just I'm nervous that we may have difficulties getting their approval, bearing in mind their history. So it does seem to me that one of the project risks perhaps ought to be securing approval from Natural England and World Heritage Site.
Okay, yes. I mean, I can make sure that that's in there. I thought it was, and if it's been missed off, yeah, I'm writing it down now. We can ensure that's in. But yes, it is a risk, but hopefully, again, with passing through this stage, it will release more funding to do the modelling and consultation, and end up with hopefully a better solution for all parties, because you know, we've been through many conversations, and yeah, there are constraints because of the beauty of the coastline and where we live and what we're trying to do, and it's obviously trying to manage those and come up with a compromise solution. So yes, it is a risk, but I'm hopeful with more money, more time and modelling and consultation, we can end up with a better solution for all parties.
If I may just finish on that note, is that on the previous meeting, we did ask for an indication, because the advice that Natural England had given in the past didn't have clear performance measures that the scheme needs to meet and overcome. And I think we need to have something to aim at from Natural England. Their constraints that they put on it have been very generic and open-ended. And I think, you know, as we spend more money on this scheme, we need really have a better clarity about what it is they're likely to approve in terms of the impact that this proposal is going to have on the designated sites and the World Heritage Site. And as vis-a-vis the last meeting, we did ask about their attendance at these meetings, and you were going to write to them and ask them what their proposals were for attending, and we don't know what you know, where they are, for instance.
Okay. Obviously, we have got Sam here from the Jurassic Coast Trust, and Natural England aren't in attendance. I can't quite remember. I did write to them, and I think it is just down to resourcing, but also that it's ultimately nothing has changed since they have been consulted on the proposal at East Beach. We still have a 120 metre long groin. So it's my understanding they can only do what they're able to do within their remit, and until we put a planning application in, that's when, you know, the formality, they'll have a formal response. Obviously, what we can do is work with them, and should we change it and come up with a better idea, they'll obviously receptive to hear that. But in the as it stands now, we have an option which hasn't changed within East Beach since we last consulted with them.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but having consulted with them on it, they've never given a clear indication of what it is they're likely to approve and agree to. So we really do need a target to aim at, especially when we get to detailed design. We need to know what it is we're aiming at to you know, the height of the hurdles they want us to jump over. And we don't want to spend money on something we don't need to do. And on the other hand, we need to spend enough money to make sure we can jump those hurdles, and to make sure that the hurdles they're placing in front of us are reasonable and justified.
Yeah, I understand that, and perhaps it's something we need to make sure the scope that the consultant picks up. That's one of the first activities is to understand this better.
I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, Tom, but if you like, I'll try to respond to Tony.
Yeah.
I mean, the situation we find ourselves in, Tony, is that in order to decide on what the impacts are going to be, we need a lot more detail than is available. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Tom can't provide us with the detail that we need to understand what the likely impacts are going to be, and therefore what the thresholds are. So we're stuck waiting for the detailed design phase to start so that we can begin those kinds of analyses. And I think we've done our best to go into quite a lot of detail, actually, into what the specific sensitivities are at East Beach and the kinds of implications that the option that we're looking at the moment in the OBC has for that area, and therefore what further work is needed in the detailed design phase. But it comes back to that point that without the detailed design phase, we can't form a more detailed opinion on what the impacts are going to be. But I know I can point out one particular threshold, for example, which is that in line with the intent of the beach management plan to reduce erosion at East Beach, we are requesting that some interaction is retained between the sea and the cliff. And we want that interrogated quite closely so that, for example, a large beach doesn't accumulate in front of that cliff, and therefore cutting off entirely from the natural eroding processes of the sea, and therefore, causing the cliff to basically vegetate, and that would obscure what was left of the geology there, for example. So that's one threshold, which we've actually made very clear in the information we've provided so far. But, that's like a lot of us, a lot of people in this meeting, we really need to get onto the detailed design phase to get this thing to the next step forwards for everybody. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for that.
It does have to, may I come back?
Yeah, Tony, if you'd like to come back in quickly.
It does up to a point, Sam, and I appreciate that, but it's chicken and egg. We need to know what we're aiming at. I mean, for instance, the advice that's been given is that there should be no adverse impact on the designated sites and the Jurassic Coast. Well, how do you define no adverse impact?
I think I've lost you a little bit, because I think we've got into a lot of detail with the last joint statement about exactly what the sensitivities are. So when we talk about adverse impacts, we described in detail what those adverse impacts might be from, for example, rock armour versus a replenished beach, what the adverse impacts on the groins will be on the various different aspects of the geological interests there that underpin the SSSI and the World Heritage Site. Now, obviously, I don't have Natural England here, so I can't speak for what they put in there. But from our point of view, we're sort of accepting that this outline business case is going to, for example, have quite a heavy negative impact on the paleontological interests, but will largely preserve the stratigraphic interests, and those are the ones that we are prioritising in this. And it then becomes the focus for the detailed design phase to make sure that those stratigraphic interests are retained, and also, for example, that the impacts on the setting of the site, so the visual aspects through the AO&B team. The AO&B will have to comment on it as well, by the way. We haven't really heard from them much about what their thresholds are for what's going to be acceptable or not. But Natural England will be commenting on that too, legislation to do with the AO&B. But that comes into the World Heritage Site in terms of how people appreciate it. So there's lots of things that we can't really have a detailed idea about until we know exactly what's being designed, especially you take it from a visual impact point of view. We could say, well, don't have too much of a visual impact. Well, what does that, where do you draw the boundary and how do you define that? It's very difficult without having something very clear to look at and take a measure of.
Thank you for that, Sam. That's explains it to a certain extent. Obviously, we've got to look at your restraints and look at that on the when we get into the design stage, and hopefully we'll meet in the middle. But the next person with his hand up is John Golding.
Thanks, Chair. I just thought, in terms of context, it might be worth mentioning that when we last met, the scheme was unaffordable, and the council in the last month or so had made the decision to effectively underwrite some of the risk pot, which we hope we don't have to spend and it become a real cost. But it's only because the council has done that we're in a position to be able to submit an OBC that we're talking about at the moment. Because you might recall that when we discussed this before, you've got to submit basically a fully funded, realistic scheme, and that's happened between this meeting and the previous meeting, which makes all this possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And Becky, you've got a hand up.
I didn't, but I do now. Thank you. Tom, this is just a bit more of a detailed question. I think from our perspective on Cliff Road, we're just wanting to make sure that the potential damages costs in the event that our properties are impacted by the erosion, that those are fully recognised. You know, we all know the costs of construction have gone up, etc., etc. When I first looked at the very shortened briefing paper that Debbie circulated a few weeks ago, there was a section there with selected option benefits, and the value of benefits through damages avoided was 19.072 million. I've been trying to reconcile that with the OBC, and I have read through it a couple of times. And I just wanted to make sure that that 19 million, that is the number that is meant to reflect the damages that would be caused to, amongst others, properties in Cliff Road through erosion.
Tom, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I don't have a document in front of me. I'd have to double check it. But I understand I think that's the total damages, but it may be higher, including flooding as well. So we've got a slight complication with Sidmouth, that there's properties. Cliff Road is all erosion properties, and we get set funding. We get set payment funding for a house that is no longer inhabitable. Then you also get damages for when that house becomes uninhabitable over 100 years. So if it was tomorrow, that damage would be quite high. If you discount that into the future, over 100 years, it becomes less. So that might affect that figure. We've also got the Sidmouth town figure, where most of the properties are at risk of flooding. However, in year 75, as an estimate, with no intervention, the seawall may cease to function as a seawall. So then we start losing properties to erosion. So there are some properties in Sidmouth town which are both at a risk of erosion and flooding. Yeah, East Beach it is purely erosion, but I'd have to check that figure and get back to you.
That's fine. It's more of a, obviously, just wanting to make sure that that number is fully reflective. And obviously, I'm not asking to see all the detail behind it. I'm just looking for a bit of reassurance.
Yeah, it is disappointing in the current funding calculator that homes at risk of flooding attract more payment than homes at risk of erosion. But that's just how the funding works. But yeah, I will double check that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Lockyer, please.
Just a quick question, Tom. Have you spoken to Southwest Water about these plans? They, as everybody knows, have been coming under huge pressure because of their excessive use of the CSOs. If they decide to do some work to reduce that, is that compatible with what's being proposed here? So I just think, maybe touching base with Southwest Water to inform them might be sensible.
That's a great idea, and no, we've not approached them since they didn't want to contribute towards the scheme. So yeah, I will ask them and see if they have any proposals for the area and our timescales, and if they are going to clash or align in a positive way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Now we need to take make a decision on this. So Debbie will be putting up a poll in a second for members to ask if they are in agreement with the business case as presented. In view of what been said regarding some of the minor adjustments to the wording, the end result is the same, but we need to just get some of the wording right. So I think Debbie's done adjusted the question. So do you want to go with that then, Debbie?
Yes. So yeah, apologies. Some of you probably saw me and Tom having a quick conversation on the screen. Sorry about that. But let me just see if I can just run the poll now for you, Chair. So hopefully on your screen now, the question you have before you is, are you happy to proceed with the outline business case subject to tweaks by officers in consultation with the portfolio holder being Councillor Jeff Young. So if you are part of the advisory group, please tap away on your screen of your choice of yes or no, and I'll give that a few moments. For those watching online on YouTube, I'm afraid the poll does not stream through to YouTube, so I can only report the result when we get there. So I'll just give it a couple of moments, Chair. Sorry, I haven't got any incidental music to play while we wait for the poll to close.
We need a Wurlitzer.
I was thinking more Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, something like that tune, as we wait for that to come through. So with everyone we've got present that has answered the poll, Chair, we've got a unanimous way forward with a yes. I don't have any dissenters showing on screen. So I'm going to end the poll now. So that is a firm yes to proceeding. Chair, thanks.
Thank you very much, group, for making that humongous decision. We now go on to item 4, which is David Rafferty is going to explain to us the community ramp proposal. Are you presenting, David?
I've got a few photos that I probably will put up just to give a bit of clarity as to where we are at the moment, location and so on and so forth. Debbie's linked into me as a co-host, so she's enabled me to do that, which is fine.
Debbie, can you organise David to share the screen?
Yep. So
Thank
Tom,
you.
if you want to stop sharing your screen, please. And then David, that should allow you then to click the share option to show your photos when you're ready.
Okay, I'll try and see what happens. Don't know what happened there.
Yep, so we can see your screen, Dave. It's just opening up the pictures that you want to show. That's it, great. Can everyone see that okay?
Just get rid of this poll thing in the middle. Thank you for letting me come and talk to you today. A number of you already know something about the ramp scheme because you've been involved at different stages, but it's probably worth me kind of giving a very quick sort of précis of where it started and why we've got to the point now where we're coming back and saying, could we be involved in the bigger scheme? Things kicked off in late spring 2020, and I'm just a resident in Sidmouth. I'm not on the council or anything, but it occurred to me that there was along the whole stretch of the beach in Sidmouth, there was no easy access onto the sand, and with the sand area kind of growing year on year, it felt that that was a very restricted thing for grandparents like me trying to get pushchairs down onto the beach, for disabled people, for frail elderly people, and so on. And it occurred to me that the corner at Chip Rocks was the shortest and quickest route onto the sand, and that's why that area was kind of chosen to progress the project. I initially spoke to District Council, Town Council, via Tom and Denise and various other people, to see whether I was just being bonkers or whether there was any kind of benefit behind the scheme, and got lots of support. And we started a Facebook page and a sort of fundraising campaign with the notion that the project was doable as a community project, and didn't need to be at that time part of the larger beach management scheme in any way at all, and that it was a scheme that was kind of doable within a 2 or 3 year time frame. That was in 2020. Things got in the way, like COVID. I had some personal health issues that kind of blew the wind out of my sails for 18 months. And so we didn't really progress very far with the funding. But at the same time, we realized that the strategy we had for funding was not the right one, in that the scheme was going to cost an awful lot more than we first envisaged. Although we got some support from Town Council, from Stuart Hughes, and from various other people, we were going to get nowhere near the actual cost. And so we needed to look at ways of reducing that and having a different funding strategy going forward. And one way to reduce was, because timescales have now in a sense, coalesced in that it sounds like the same stage as the larger scheme, in that we've got outline funding, outline design, and are about to really need to move to a more detailed design stage. That feels like it's at the same stage as the larger beach management plan. We've had a lot of support so far. If I could, can you see that picture just come up?
Yeah.
Yeah. MPS Southwest were very supportive in that first year in terms of providing us with an engineer to do a topographical survey of the area, so that we knew what levels there were and what kind of designs might work there. And they also then went on to give us a notion of a kind of outline conceptual design of a ramp. There were a number of options put forward. One was a straight ramp coming down from one side to the other. This notion of a zigzag ramp to kind of make it into a smaller area and compact it a bit more. And we've also had notions of a ramp coming right down. So we've got a number of different options in terms of where to go. But everybody we've spoken to felt this was the right location for the ramp, and that we could then go forward to find out which was the best design to move forward with us. The project, rather than setting up a new organisation, new bank accounts and everything else, the project is hosted by Sidmouth Coastal Community Hub. They very kindly said that they'd host us so that they could give oversight and banking facilities to the project. And they've done that and been very supportive. We've had other advice along the way from Natural England, from Jurassic Coast, from Sam in particular. Thank you, Sam, for your letter earlier. From Natural England as well. We've sought advice from them, and that's been very, very useful. So we're kind of at that stage now where in order for the project to move forward, it needs to slot into the same time scale as the larger scheme. And that's what I'm here to kind of ask if that can happen, really. That's it in a nutshell. If anyone wants to throw questions at me, I'm more than happy to ask what I can, answer what I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to come in now and explain how it will dovetail into the bigger project and the benefits that it would have, if there are any issues that we do need to know about with the two schemes?
Yes, absolutely. I've been involved, since initial ideas with this, and yes, involving it with our scheme. I guess financially they're a separate entity, and I think that's important to make, that we're not trying to reduce the funding available for the BMP to include this. This is separate, but we're hoping that this will make use of our Marine Management Organisation application, part of our conversations with Natural England and Jurassic Coast Trust, and also planning and everything else, that this will be wrapped up within that. So there'll be an efficiency saving, that this smaller project in the scheme of things will just be wrapped up neatly as part of a much bigger document to the relevant organisations, rather than it being a standalone application from themselves, which will cost them considerable money and time to do individually. Obviously, the other benefit is, should they choose to, is that we will have contractors on site, and all the mobilisation costs will be with ourselves. So they could add in the work as an additional work to the contractor, and keep it financially independent, but take advantage of us being there with kit, etc. So and of course the other advantage is that there's amenity being added to the BMP as a whole. So we're being reflected with this brilliant idea, that aside from a larger beach, which we're providing with the BMP, is that there will be better access to the beach with this initiative.
Thank you, Tom, for that. Can you give a ballpark figure of how much the saving would be?
As a quick guess, it's £20,000, and the rest potentially. It depends on the MMO application and licensing and everything else. But there could be a saving. We're going to have to do it anyway, so it just gets wrapped up. And the planning application, and further design, etc. So yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor John Loudon.
Just quickly, Jeff, I just wanted to say to Dave, thank you. Your foresight and thoughtfulness around this is welcome. It's one of those, why haven't we thought about this and done something like this before things, really? In hindsight, it's thinking obvious, isn't it, that we need to do something to gain better access onto the beach. And if we can dovetail what you want to do into what Tom is taking forward for the rest of the town, then it's got to be a complete win-win. This is such a good news story.
Thank you, John, for that. As far as I'm concerned, getting disabled onto the beach is something that we worked on at Seaton, we've worked on at Exmouth, and this just dovetails into what we actually want to do now. Wheelchair access onto all our beaches are a problem, and this will resolve that.
If I can just say though, Jeff, I'm a bit irritated because by the time this comes on the stream, my days of lugging a pushchair down will have been gone, I guess.
Oh, don't worry, I'll push you.
So, Chair Dave wants to come back and speak.
Yeah, Dave Rafferty.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of other quick points. One of our problems was a kind of chicken and egg problem in that because we didn't have detailed costings, we couldn't go out to funders and say we need this much and so on and so forth. Luckily, Kia have stepped forward as a goodwill gesture and said that they'll work up an estimate for us, and it is an estimate based on kind of conceptual designs at the moment. So there'll be optimal risk bias built into it, I guess, at that point. But it will give us a figure going forward. And the other thing I wanted to say was that the other scheme, I'm meeting with Louise Cole next week and with Hilary Nelson to see how this dovetails into the Coast to Country scheme that is East End District Council funded through, I think, your Innovation and Transition Funding. And the third link we want to try and get to it is a kind of some kind of artwork that art project that may be linked to this as well in terms of community involvement in that way. So we're trying to pull different threads together in the community to make this happen. And once we know how much money we need going forward, we can put a funding strategy together and come out with our bowl again and see what funds we can raise.
Thank you, Dave, on that. I've got Oliver now with his hand up.
Yeah, there was talk previously, and I know Phil was involved in possibly putting a more permanent ramp in at Port Royal, which would also benefit with the access to do the work at East Beach. Is that still on the cards, or is that being dispensed with?
Tom, do you want to come back on that one?
No, that's absolutely included, and it's part of a scheme. We needed to access the beach with larger equipment, and so we need a bigger slipway at Port Royal end, and obviously for the benefit of the community and the lifeboat as well, so that there would be enhanced wheeled access to that side of the beach. But at the moment there's not a sandy beach there, so this is tying up the other end with the attraction of the sandy beach and calm waters behind the existing breakwaters.
And access to the rock pools as well. Sorry, just to throw that in. There's so many people who want to try and get down to the rock pools that can't, and that's why that end's important too, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got no other hands. So we've got another question coming up now that Debbie will provide.
Yep.
If you'd like to put that one forward, please.
Okay, so in front of you all, you've got the question, do you agree that sorry, I've missed out the word ramp in the actual question. Do you agree that the community ramp should be included? I don't know, I've put grant in there. I must be thinking of another meeting entirely. So if you could just please choose your choice on the screen.
Your spell check is working wrongly.
I think it's because I've been working on a community grant panel agenda this morning, Chair. I'm confusing my words. So I'll just give that a couple more moments while everyone makes clear their choice. Okay, so Chair, again, unanimous choice in support. Yes, they'd like to see the ramp included in the scheme. I have no dissenters to that. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So we now move on to item 5, scoping detailed design stage. Back to the Tom show.
Thank you. Right. Sorry, I'm just, I had prepared a presentation just in case David hadn't got one. So I'm just making sure I'm not showing that one again. So bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen. Right. Okay. Can people see the screen?
Yes, thanks.
Cool. Let's start the presentation. Okay. So this is the next important phase that we need to go to. I'll skip to the next one. It's very short. Is as been asked several times, are we including bits? Have we thought about that? And I want to ensure that we have. So I'm proposing to set up a subgroup, not too dissimilar from the one we had during the pause process, to ensure that we've got all the detail for the scope for the detailed design stage. So when funding gets approved, we'll hope to procure a consultant, and they need to have a good scope and something that we are not going to have to keep going back and adding things into. So as I mentioned, it's important to get the community wishes in. It's important to get a new modelling scope, and it's to reflect Sidmouth's conditions. And yeah, a request, a subgroup, and we're going to ask Royal Haskoning as a final bit of work to draft the scope with the subgroup to make sure it's contractually sound, and obviously that we form part of a tender. So I was looking for volunteers to help form a subgroup with myself to look into what detail we need to include in the detailed design stage and modelling stage. So is there any volunteers?
How many are you looking for, Tom?
That's a good question. I would say around, I'd say 4 to 8 would probably be optimal. But again, if there's passionate people, we can include more.
Do I take it, Tom, that you want people that are, well, basically users of the area, don't you? Would be ideal.
Yes. I mean, yeah, maybe we don't quite need 8 really. I think 4 probably is more of an option. Yeah, it's to make sure we're not missing anything when we do the detailed design scope. For example, the rip currents. You know, we need to have a safety element to whatever structure we're putting in. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting a load of Me Too's on this at the moment.
Yeah, Chair, we've got some hands up as well.
Yeah. So Colin Boyden, please.
Yes, I just was interested in being part of this group because my background is in geology, and that may be helpful to that. I don't.
Thank you, Colin. So there's one. Mary Warden-Till.
I'm willing to do it again because of knowing how the pause went and being a designer.
Yeah. Tony Birch. You're on silent.
Are we there?
Yeah, come hit with it.
Yeah, I'm very willing, Chairman, having been involved in the beach management plan production and having retired from the agency from coastal management.
And Robin Goodman, we're getting loads of volunteers.
I wasn't sure whether to actually volunteer or not, but what I did want to say was possibly selfishly, my big concern is how the work is going to develop, how the work is going to affect the current surf setup we have at Sidmouth, reminding you that surfing is a sport that's increasing, it's getting bigger in Sidmouth, and potentially that work could have a big effect on that industry, if you like, as well as seeing it as a sport. Obviously, the detailed design could have a big impact on the effect of the new structures on the wave setup in Sidmouth Bay. So whether or not I'm useful as a volunteer for that, I'll leave that up to you, but I am willing to put my 10 pence worth in.
Councillor John Loudon.
You'll be pleased to know, Jeff, I'm not going to volunteer, but what I am going to do, and I'm also seeing it in the chat, is I'm going to throw either Becky or Paul Grew under the bus and volunteer one of them.
That's fine. I was going to volunteer, Paul. I think it's fair.
Thank you, Becky.
No, I mean, we'd be delighted to help. So yeah, please count us in.
And Councillor Denise Bickley, you're always on the beach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to volunteer. I don't know if I'm of any use, but similar to Robin, really, I want to make sure things are running smoothly for beach users, but I don't have the engineering background or anything, so keep me on Team B if you like.
Thank you. And David Rafferty.
If it's useful, I'd love to be involved in helping the subgroup.
Thank you. And Chris Lockyer.
Ditto. I think it sounds like you can choose who you want, Tom.
Right. Have you got a list of the names, Tom?
I do. I've written all the names down.
Yeah. So
I was going to say it's not quite. It won't be quite the same as onerous, hopefully, as the pause project. I imagine we'll have a meeting or two, possibly not 6 or however many we have the pause project. But it will be a we'll do it by correspondence. So it'll be what things do you want to see in there? The consultant will go away and draft it, and we'll probably feed back on it. So, I mean, we've got 8 I've written down, including myself. So, unless someone is not really that keen, I'm happy to proceed with that.
Tom, I've got a few volunteered in the chat as well.
Okay, so I've missed that. Yeah,
I'll make a larger list for you, Tom, and
okay,
perhaps we'll work from there.
Yes, I mean, it's not going to be quite as because the pause process was more open. This has got a set. We have a scope. We just need to get the detail in. So I don't think it's harmful to have too many people looking at it, even if there's no actual comments. It's just to make sure that the scope is correct. So yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. Do we move on? We've got the list. So we just need to note the list, then move on.
Yes. So in due course, I will contact everyone. I've got people's emails, and we'll do probably by correspondence a brainstorming session on what we want to include, and work from there. Obviously, we will report back to the advisory group on what we're doing. When we're not completely, it won't be a standalone group. We'll report back on where we've got to at the next advisory group.
So we now move on to item 6, procedure of detailed design and contractor discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So I've included this just for sort of an open discussion at the moment. It's quite a few contractors and consultants have approached me to say, I hear you've got a big scheme in Sidmouth, how can we help? But obviously, we need to work out how we're going to procure this going forward. Ultimately, I think the decision on where we go will be taken by the project board, but of course I'll be listening to advice from the advisory group. So I see it as 4 options going forward, and it was a very short discussion of those, so we can kind of get a bit of feedback before we really start going into detail. First of all, well, these are the 4 options, and I'll go into a bit more detail. So we've got the whole market designer and then the whole market contractor. So this is a traditional approach that we would get tender the design, then once it's confirmed at planning or before planning, we would then tender it to a contractor and they'd build it, and that's a traditional method. We've got design and build, where the designer and contractor work together throughout the stage. We've also got the Environment Agency framework and the design contract and construction contract. So that's using the Environment Agency's framework contractors and consultants. We've also got access to other local government frameworks. So a very quick overview, detailed design and contractor for the whole market is a traditional approach and is likely to get the best value option, but it requires 2 procurement processes, obviously one for the consultant and one for the contractor. So potentially we could be looking at further delays. The tender documents need to be written really well to avoid expensive changes to contracts. So typically with these contracts, all parties tend to be more competitive, trying to make money, and therefore where they see there's less collaborative approach because of the way that the contracts work. We can of course introduce target costs and all the rest to reduce that, but there is a slightly separate approach. But we are in a position that we can tender to the whole market to potentially get the best value. The next one is a whole market design and build. I fear this might be quite expensive at the moment because there's a high risk. There's a lot of unknowns, so that a design and build consortium don't know what they're putting money to. For example, they don't know if they're building 1 or 2 offshore breakwaters. Obviously, the advantage is that there's a single procurement process, so it's quicker, and also that the contractor and designer work together at all stages. So potentially buildability and therefore cost, it can be cheaper because they thought about how they're going to build it when they're designing it. It's quite good in discrete sites, but I would argue it's not the solution here at Sidmouth, but we can discuss. The next one is the Environment Agency framework. So we have access to the Environment Agency's collaborative design framework, which is Kia and Atkins, and we potentially could use them. It's essentially a direct award, but it is for an agreed price, so it's not completely make up a price. So it could be more expensive, as we're not testing the whole market. However, it is definitely the quickest route to construction. So for us to get something out to be consulted on, detailed design and all that, and then get it constructed is definitely the quickest way. It is a collaborative target cost framework, so all parties work together to reduce costs and make it better and therefore more profit for each element. And we're currently using this framework on Fennerton, where we've been able to expedite the work from slowly to very quickly, and looking to start on site this summer. The final option is looking at other government frameworks. We are signed up to frameworks for construction, but we're not any relevant ones. So we would have to investigate this and sign up. Potentially it could be more competitive than the EA framework, but and generally frameworks are less risky than the whole market. This is just down to the fact that all the tender documents have been pre-approved and all the suppliers have been pre-approved with all the relevant insurances and everything else and working practices. So it's something we could go for, but that's where we are. I believe, going back to the overall options, being very slow, is that option 1 and 3 are ones to probably investigate more so. It's just depending on I guess cost and speed. But I'm also willing to have a few questions and any feedback, and we'll take that forward.
Thank you, Tom, for that. You say speed, but can you give us an idea of the difference in one compared with the other in sort of months?
Yes, potentially a tender process could take 6 months, especially for a big project. By the time the document's been written, specified, and ongoing, it can be quite a long process. And if we're going to have to do that twice, although I appreciate you can overlap it with the, prior to the planning process, those drawings could go to contractor and be tendered on during the planning process. Yes, there could be up to a,
So, but because
6 to 12 months.
But so it could be 12 months because of the doing it at out of season, etc., and stuff like that.
Yes, I mean the program I proposed is using a traditional. The option 1, the item 1 is traditional. That's how I proposed it, but unfortunately, this project we know has come across plenty of delays. So, if we can be quicker than that, obviously that will allow for any future delay coming forward. So,
right, okay. First questioner, I've got Councillor John Loudon.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm probably going to set myself up for a kicking now with so many engineers on this meeting. But as a layperson and looking at this, it does seem to me that we're unlikely to be looking at a raft of contractors who would be able to provide the sorts of skills and experience to deliver this sort of project, I would guess. Now, someone's going to tell me I'm completely wrong, because it doesn't feel like your normal house building type, straightforward project where there's going to be anybody you can virtually go to build that house for you. So, therefore, how much competition is there really, truthfully, going to be out there? And when I'm looking at this, yes, I, as a layperson, 1 and 3 came through to me. The point that you're making, Tom, about number 1 being needing 2 tender periods, and then the point Jeff's just made, well, can we align the 2 tender periods then with the weather and the time of year, so that it all falls neatly? Will that add more than the 6 months or what have you to the time? So given the Environment Agency is an established, well accepted organisation, and they've got a framework, and we're working with them, and I'm sure other councils work with them as well. I personally am minded to 3 as a layperson. So come on, engineers, kick me.
Right. Here we are. We've got 2 engineers. Chris Lockyer, please.
Thanks, Jeff. My instinct would actually have been 2. And the reason why I say that is because of the complexity of the project and huge numbers of unknowns that actually we've got. And so, as Tom alluded to, if you get a single contractor doing the design and the build, then they have to have half an eye on the build when they're doing the design. But, and it's a big but, given that most of the costs are in the build, and given the sort of geopolitical situation that we've currently got at the moment, if we went out now, the risk factor that would have to be included in that is huge, because of huge uncertainties around when the Ukraine war is going to end, and also whether we're ever going to get some kind of better arrangement with the European Union after Brexit. And those things, if we gave it a bit more time before we actually contracted a constructor of the project, might allow a little bit less uncertainty in the costs. So that would actually take me away from 2, perhaps, and push me maybe, as John was alluding to. So you're not all wrong, John. towards 3, because I think that if you're used to dealing with people and are used to these kind of contracts, then again it'll be a little bit smoother. But so I think I would probably also be biased towards 3. But I think, as I said, the reason is because of the uncertainty and the complexity of the geopolitical environment we're currently living in.
And the next engineer, please, Tony Birch. You're on silent again.
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, got it.
John, I think you'll be pleased to know I tend to agree with you. But I think, and I take on board what Chris has said, the main problem I see with 3 is the capacity of the framework consultants, because they are working on a framework for the whole Environment Agency, and lots of other district councils will be plugging into their abilities as well. Will they have enough capacity to meet the timescales we're looking at? But certainly they'll have the expertise to do it, and they'll be used to the types of contracts and the type of work we're talking about, because they are specifically there to design flood defence and coastal defence and fluvial defence schemes. That's their business. But it's their capacity that worries me. Have they got enough staff on board to meet our time frame?
Philip.
Well, yeah, the amount of work that's required by consultants to get onto a framework with EA is enormous. So if we can cut out some of that and bring things forward, and we talk about uncertainty in construction costs, I think the only thing that is certain is they're going up. So perhaps anything we can do, I just wonder whether moving quickly and the extra cost of appointing a framework consultant is offset by the fact that we're moving more quickly and construction costs rising might offset that.
Right.
Thank you. And Richard Ely?
Yes, I don't have any expertise in this area, so I wasn't going to comment, except that I did sympathise with what Chris was saying about option 2, and my instinct is I think if we're not careful, we will have yet another over-engineered proposal, and I'd like to avoid that if possible. And I wondered whether option 2 would make that a less likely outcome. That's just an observation. I throw it out there if anybody else is interested to comment. Thank you.
And Ian Barlow?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd agree with that. I think Chris's and Richard Ely's comments there, if I was building something big that was complicated, that had lots of if, buts and maybes in it, I would certainly want it designed and built, so there's no arguing who designed what and then it can't be built. The other thing is I just wanted to mention, we've got local elections coming up. Is this now in sort of concrete with the East Devon District Council? Can it be changed should the political framework change in East Devon District Council, or is this now guaranteed? What I don't want to do is in another 2 months' time, if the situation was to change, that this comes back and now they've changed their mind again.
I don't know how to answer that one. It depends who gets in, doesn't it? Robin Goodman.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I got lost there and I fell out of the meeting somehow. So I'd apologise if I repeat what anybody else has just said before me. But regarding the choice of contract relationship, I do feel that what happened previously, I understand, is that people went to speak to contractors and all of a sudden £1 million went on the price because the consultation with the contractor didn't happen soon enough. So I would suggest, I think I might be in agreement with some of you already, that a design and build for such a bespoke scheme like this would probably be a quite effective way to go, getting the contractor involved early. So early questions around the construction phase can be addressed by the designer.
Thank you. And Becky?
Thank you. So I think similar theme to what we've already heard, and I used to work in professional services, so I don't have the same engineering type background, but just for me, it's also around the lead time. Not only how long is this process going to take to tender, but what are the lead times for actually getting started on the work? And I don't know if there's any way to almost pre-screen the lead times that the main contractors in the market that are able to do this work what they're working towards. We talked about Keir and Atkins with the Environment Agency. We probably can get quite a good handle on theirs, but I just have no concept about what the rest of the market looks like. But I just want to make sure we keep that in mind as well as the whole procurement process.
Thank you. I'll go back to Tom now. So what's the results of the thoughts? I lost track.
No, I've written a few notes, and so apologise I haven't directly answered questions. I guess starting backwards is availability, and yes, that is a consideration. I mean, on our side, we've probably got, I mean, I haven't seen the Environment Agency programme, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest projects in the Southwest, so therefore is quite an attractive piece of work to consultants and contractors. So that we're willing to push work around to try and win it. Through the third option, which is Environment Agency framework, although Keir are on there, they often subcontract work to other contractors, so therefore to ensure that they've got availability to work to fulfill our contract wishes. So that's how they operate, and that's how they can deliver schemes when we need them to be delivered, rather than when someone's free to deliver them. Again, not wishing to promote option 3 as much, but it is kind of a quasi design and build framework, that it's a collaborative framework, so the contractor is involved with the design process. It's a separate contract. It's not a single contract to a consortium of a design and build company like there can be for highways, etc. It's a separate contract, but as part of that is that Keir would get involved with the design. I've experienced this at Fennerton, for example, where we're looking at alignments for a culvert to go down a street, and they're saying that's too close to the curb, it means we're going to have to remove the whole curb and then rebuild the curb, extra money. So the consultant's pushing it away from the curb. So it's these conversations which would happen with a design and build contract, but certainly the collaborative framework is set up to try and do that. Obviously, Keir won't be able to submit a price until they know what they're building. That is the concern. But the existing option has been priced by a rival company, so we have a price for construction going forward to base things off.
Thank you. Tony wants to come back. Yes, Tony. Press the button. You're still silent.
Yep. Okay. Am I there?
Yeah,
okay.
Got you.
As I said, one of the critical elements of this is going to be the design, optimizing the design, and that is going to involve wave-based modeling. So whoever we choose has got to be able to either do the wave-based modeling or manage a contractor who can do the wave-based modeling. And that's on the critical path, and that's where all the mistakes can be made and all the benefits and opportunities can be achieved as well. And I see that as being one of the most important parts of the whole project. It's going to be the wave-based modeling, coming out with an optimized design that's best for the community, looks the best, has the least visual impact, and is the most cost-effective. And so whoever does the contract needs to be able to either do the wave-based modeling or is able to manage a contractor who can, such as Hydraulics Research Wallingford or something like that, and understand what they're doing.
Yeah, Philip wants to come back now.
Yeah, I think HR Wallingford are the only consultants in the UK that can do physical modelling. So whoever the consultants are, they'll be subcontracting them to do that. There's nobody else can do it.
But whoever they are needs to be able to manage HR Wallingford in liaison with the client.
Thank you. So, are there two options that we can rule out now, and then we can then pass it over to the project board to decide on which one to go for? Have we got time to do that, Tom?
Well, I mean, I wasn't planning on having a vote on this. It was more just to get, advice, really, general advice. And I think we've got it. And I don't think ruling them out at this stage is possibly a bad. We don't need to do that. But I think there's strong support for item 1 and item 3. So yeah, I've written a lot of things down. I don't see the need to vote on it, especially because we don't quite know what we're voting on. It's more just a general discussion.
Yeah. So if we just note that, but 1 and 3 are the preferred at the moment.
Yes.
Unless you can pull something out of the hat.
Yes, I mean, if it's helpful, the Environment Agency's framework, Atkins and Keir have offered to come and present. So potentially, if we are to have a sooner meeting, I imagine, hopefully once the OBC is approved, we'll probably have another meeting, or that could be an opportune moment for them to come and sell their wares, as you will, and potentially we could see if someone else wants to look at the other route. But it's something I can investigate if that's of interest.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. I've talked to both contractors on when they've been on other jobs, and the Sidmouth discussion comes up quite often. Sidmouth is a wonderful project that they would like to get involved with. So we've got that up our sleeve as well. So yeah.
And plenty of private other contractors not on frameworks have approached myself, but obviously we've got nothing yet to give them. So
yeah. So we move on to item 7, next steps. It's Tom again.
Sorry, just go through the slides quickly. Next steps. So I guess the next critical thing is the project board. We need to quickly discuss. The next bit of this will go into actually what next stages are. But regarding the project board, they have the board has delegated authority from the cabinet to approve the OBC once it's finally finished, and it's just on the project board that's been approved is we required a representative from one of the contributors outside of East Devon and Environment Agency to be on the project board. So and if I've missed someone, it's be embarrassing, but it's my understanding that is Sidmouth Town Council, Crag, Devon County Council and Sidmouth Lifeboat are all contributing money towards the scheme. So we wanted a single representative from that group from those groups to represent external contributors to the scheme. And that single person would obviously liaise with the other people in that group to make sure that their wishes for how they're contributing and money going forward is put forward. So yes, essentially after the nominations for that.
John Loudon, you've got your hand up.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I also did put something in chat, which I put up actually before Tom had finished speaking. And it's even more, I'm even more convinced that Chris Lockyer is probably the right person because one, I believe he's an engineer and the way he's been talking, both in this meeting and other meetings, he clearly has a good handle on the issues. Two, he is a representative of the town council, and all the other organisations will have the opportunity to link in via the town council in order to liaise, direct, advise, whatever, with Chris Lockyer. So I would put Chris's name forward.
Thank you, John. Just to explain what we can do on the project board is when we get to a certain subject, like the ramp, we can then invite the lifeboat and Phil to come and attend that specific meeting. So it's not ruling out anyone. We can invite people in and out at certain times for that specific task that is being discussed at that time. I've got another 2 hands Ian Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to support John Loudon's suggestion that Chris Lockyer would be an ideal person. He is chair of the town council at the present time, and he has great knowledge of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to remind the board that, the advisory group, when we spoke about the board last, which was last year sometime, we did talk about having the addition of someone like Tony Birch onto the board as a special recommendation, really, from the advisory group due to his continuity and historical knowledge of the project. So I just wanted to propose that perhaps as an addition to those terms of reference.
And I would support that. Tony has been my conscience for the last 4 years, so it would be sad to not have him phoning me up at strange times of the day. Mary-Ann Rickson.
We're very busy nominating people, but we haven't asked whether they would be agreeable to do it.
Yeah, so we've got some Chris Lockyer nominated. If you'd like to come in and make a comment.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, John and Ian. No, I'd be very happy to help in this way. I spent an awful lot of time over the last few years on this, and many hours of conversation along with Jeff and Tony and Tom. So I do feel that I've got a sort of good background in it, and as others have said, my background isn't as an engineer. So although I'm not a marine engineer, I feel I can ask the right kind of questions and understand how you manage risk on a large engineering project, which I think is a skill that is required on the board.
Yeah, and also you'd be looking at the money side of it, because you'd be the spokesperson for the people who've contributed the extra funding. So you'd be watching the purse. And Tony, would you like to accept our invitation?
Chairman, thank you very much for the invitation, and also for Andrew for suggesting me. Yes, I'd be very pleased and honoured to serve on the board.
Thank you for that. So is that decided? Do we need to take a vote?
Chair,
Debbie?
I'm happy to run. I've got a couple of polls ready to go. So we'll start with Chris Lockyer's nomination. Can you please indicate on your screen?
Can you vote for yourself?
Several times, Chris.
I'm not. No, you can't. You certainly can't vote for yourself, or indeed several times. But I'm looking for it, and I have no dissenters to that. So congratulations, Chris. You are the.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your
project
confidence.
secondary partner.
I don't know if congratulations are.
So our next one, I'll just run for Tony, please, as an additional advisory member on that project board. And again, if you could please indicate if you're in support of that on screen. I'll just give that a few moments more. And again, I have no dissenters. Everyone is in support. So congratulations, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome
Thank you,
aboard.
Chair.
So that's item 7 done. So
well, we've got one final bit of what happens next. So and then we're done. Although I've just noticed in Barlow's hands popped up.
So I just wanted to confirm, does that mean there's only going to be 3 people on that advisory board? And I just wanted to say that obviously Chris Lockyer, I was thinking for the town council representative, but are you saying he's now representing all the other people who have a right to be on that board? I just don't want it to be 3 people is a very small board to make that sort of decision.
Tom, do you want to go through the other people that need to be on that board?
Yes, I'm just trying to find a document. I've got it open. There are other people. They include people from East Devon and the Environment Agency, essentially people who are committing money to it. So I've just got too many Word documents open. So sorry, I have to go in that way. I'm not sure if I'm sharing screens or a program.
Yes, you are.
In terms of,
can I just
can you see the
confirm-
PDF? Sorry.
Could I just confirm while you're looking for that?
Yeah.
Is it my understanding that all of those people are entitled to a place on the board? And what you're suggesting is that Chris Lockyer represents all of them. All I'm saying is that if it comes to voting for things, I know how committees work. You vote for something and it goes through. I'm just concerned that it might be a bit heavy on one side rather than the town having just one say rather than several says. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I have to consider how we deal with that. So I've got there is the project executive, which is an East Devon officer at strategic lead level. We've got a project sponsor, which is the council member, and a project primary partner, which is the Environment Agency, and project secondary partner, which is the Chris Lockyer position we've just discussed. And we've also got the project manager, which is myself. So there would be 5 on that list and 6 with Tony Birch involved in the project board.
So sorry.
Yeah.
I'll get back to
Is that to your liking, Ian?
I'm not being, I don't want to be a pain, but I just want to understand that, are these other people allowed a place on the board? Is that what was originally set up? And is that going to make sure that Sidmouth, I know East Devon are doing what they think is right for Sidmouth, the rest of it, but I just want Sidmouth Town Council and the people of Sidmouth to get a good say in this.
Just going back to what I was explaining before, Ian, is that when we're designing specific parts of it, we'll be able to invite other people in to give their thoughts on it. So when we're discussing the splash wall, for instance, we could invite someone else from Sidmouth to sit in on that meeting. Hopefully that would help.
But I presume they won't have a vote.
Chair, can I perhaps try and come in, because I think from where I'm sitting, I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding going on between Ian, Tom, and yourself, possibly. Yeah, I'm looking at the membership of the project board that was presented to the 1st of February cabinet and agreed, and subsequently agreed by full council. So the membership of that, as Thomas set out, was a project executive, a project sponsor, project primary partner, secondary partner, and the secondary partner is what we've just voted on for Chris Lockyer to represent County Council, Crag, the Lifeboat, and the Town Council. And then there is the project manager, and then there is Tony Birch as an additional representative. So what we voted for here was for Chris to be the representative of 4 funding sponsors known as secondary partners. Have I got that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Andrew, do you want to come in just to clarify? And then I've got Marianne.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give Ian some comfort, really, to say that this doesn't supersede the advisory group that we're sat in now. And there's a set of terms of reference that go along with this, which we've discussed in this advisory group last year and went to Cabinet, as John was just referencing. And the project board will just be operating within reference of those terms of reference to allow the project in relation to its specification procurement, etc., to move along at pace to make relevant decisions related to that specification. But it won't stop us bringing items to the advisory board and keeping you, the advisory group, and keeping you fully appraised of what we're doing. And when we reach specific decision points, milestones in that project plan, we'll still be coming to the advisory group for your approval of that, and cabinet related to certain levels of decision. So it's not going to put things behind closed doors or give you any less scrutiny of what's going on. It just means that we can be a bit more agile and hopefully avoid some of the delays that we've seen thus far.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Just a quick comment, Jeff. The way I would see this working is that there is a clear project to be delivered and a scope to be delivered, and the project board is actually overseeing delivery of that agreed scope. And one of the key risks, one of the key jobs of that board is actually to manage the risks involved in delivering it and intervene as necessary to keep it on track, both from financially, scope-wise, and time-wise. So I don't see it necessarily being, going off on a tangent. I know there's a clear agreed deliverable. The project board is there to deliver that project.
Thank you, Chris, for that. I've got Marianne with a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. My question just relates to the project board. I believe is going to have 6 members. If there was a split decision, who has the casting vote?
We'll decide that on the first meeting, can we?
Yes, I guess it hasn't been because there was originally 5 on there. I think it'll have to be decided on the first meeting, but I imagine it would be the most senior member of that.
Yeah. So I've just got Andrew Hancock saying it would be the chair.
Yeah.
If it's senior, I think Chris Glock is the oldest.
Cheeky bugger.
No, he's not. Oh, no, he's not.
Jeff, I think we're almost in danger of tying ourselves up in knots and throwing out a positive and turning it into a negative. Surely, if we have a project board that finds itself so split, we're in great difficulty.
Yeah.
And in that case,
I would hope board decisions would be pretty well unanimous on going forward. If it, as you say, if there's a split vote, it would be pretty scary.
Decisions have to be evidence-based, and if the evidence is clear, then it'll be almost always unanimous.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Shall we head back to Tom to finish off, Chair?
Yeah, we're going slightly over my 2-hour hope, but not by much, hopefully. So this should be a quick slide. Hopefully you can still see that because I was looking at the PDF. Let me make that slightly bigger.
Yep, that's still on show, Tom.
Cool, thank you. So what happens next is once the OBC has had the last final tweaks, the project board will approve it and it'll be sent to the Environment Agency. And they will assure and approve it over the next month or so. Meanwhile, I'm quite keen to get the subgroup to work on with Royal Haskoning to develop the scope for the detailed design stage. And a further BMP meeting soon. I was anticipating May, June time. Hopefully, once the project's assured and we've got more to update everyone on, I was thinking that a good time. And as I mentioned, potentially we could get some consultants, contractors along if it's of interest. So those are the next steps, really. And that's the end of the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tom, for taking us through the whole meeting. So this brings our meeting to an end, and I would like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. And until then, your comments will be live to the public. So thank you ever so much for this afternoon. Can Tom and Debbie and Andrew just